الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين أفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا علما وعملا متقبلا يا أرحم الراحمين. Is anyone here that was not here last night for the Tarawih? Okay. I didn't ask that to put anybody on the spot, but I just I did a small dars in between the 4 and 4 rak'ahs for Tarawih, and just wanted to know so that I know where to start. Basically, last night we read Juz 6, in which there was an ayah that I felt the need to address during our break between Tarawih, and it was ayah number 3 specifically in Surah Al-Ma'idah. Ayah number 3, Surah Al-Ma'idah. And in that ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, حرمت عليكم الميتة والدم ولحم الخنزير وما أهل لغير الله به والمنخنقة والموقوذة والمتردية والنطيحة وما أكل السبع إلا ما ذكيتم وما ذبح على النصب وأن تستقسموا بالأزلام ذلك فسق. Right? So in that ayah, this ayah and the next 2 or so after that is where the whole debate, if you will, surrounding the eating of Zabiha meat stems from, and or eating the meat of quote unquote the people of the book, as some say. So there's a well-known debate, as you all know, that people say, okay, as long as the meat that we're consuming is from the people of the book, i.e. the Christians or the Jews, that it's okay for us to consume it. However, I found that oftentimes, which I mentioned yesterday, people overlook a couple of ayahs before it where Allah lays down some ground rules as to how the animal should be killed or how it should not be killed if we want to consume it. And in this ayah, Allah lays out, in ayah number 3, He lays it out. So He starts off with saying, حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمْ الْمَيْتَةِ. And al-mayta is what's called carrion, I guess the fancy word for it, but it's the dead animal, dead flesh. Animal that died of either natural causes or, got hit by a car, a disease, or something of that nature, got trampled by other animals or something like that. So it died in a way that was other than being slaughtered for the purpose of consumption. That's the first category. The second one, it says, al-maytatu wad-dam. It says the blood. It's not talking about specifically meat here, but it's talking about the blood of the animal that's being sacrificed or that's being slaughtered, right? Which, obviously comes from the tradition of some pagans around the world that actually still practice today in some parts of Asia, and Africa, and so on and so forth, where they would take the animal, put it on an altar, slaughter it, drain it of its blood, right, and then drink the blood for whatever reason that they want to drink the blood. And then it says وَلَحْمُ الْخِنْزِيرِ, which is the one that nobody has any dispute with, right? The swine, the meat of pigs. Nobody has any dispute with that one. Alhamdulillah, there's no debate surrounding that one. وَمَا أُهِلَّ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ بِهِ. And what the meat that, or the animal that Allah's name has not been mentioned over, right? So we don't say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar before killing the animal, or Bismillah, or mention Allah's name in some way. وَالْمُنْخَنِقَةِ, the animal that is strangled, hanged, right? Like a noose, right? وَالْمَوْقُوذَةُ وَالْمُتَرَدِّيَةُ وَالنَّطِيحَةِ, and he goes on, he's listing, the animal that's knocked upside the head, right, with a blunt object or with whatever it is, right, knocked upside the head. The animal that's thrown over, right, it's thrown over, off a cliff or off of something or whatever. وَمَا أَكَلَ السَّبْعُ, and whatever a wild beast ate from, except that which, it's a whole lot of rulings surrounding this one. I don't want to get into too many details, but basically they make an exception with regards to any animal that a wild beast ate for the purpose of hunting. If you have like a hunting dog and you're hunting, like, let's say ducks or some type of birds or small animals, rabbits or something like that, and you have to, when you send the animal out, that's the time when you say the name of Allah. You say Bismillah, right? And you send out the animal. And the way you know how to differentiate between just the wild beast and the trained beast is that the trained beast, it knows not to eat the animal once it has caught it, right? So the trained dog, hunting dog, will go out, it'll catch the animal, and it'll keep it for its master, and they'll bring it back. And usually they take a little piece and they'll give it to him as a reward for obeying, right? So in that case, that's fine. The fact that that dog, killed that particular animal, that's okay. That's not what they're talking about. They're making an exception to that. وَمَا أَكَلَ السَّبْعُ إِلَّا مَا ذَكَّيْتُمْ وَمَا ذُبِحَ عَلَى النُّصُبِ, and whatever has been slaughtered on like an altar, like, right, as a part of a pagan tradition, and some other stuff that doesn't necessarily apply to today. Something about some gambling thing that pagans used to do as well. So and then he does, this doesn't end the ayah, but Allah describes the people who basically go against all of this and consume the meat of animals that have been killed this way. And he says, ذَلِكُمْ فِسْقٌ. He says that doing it in this way, killing the animals in all of these ways, right? Strangling them, knocking them upside the head, so on and so forth, doing all these things. He says this is fisq. Fisq. What I described yesterday was that fisq is from the verb fasaqa, which in the linguistic sense means is referring to like a fruit that falls off of the tree, right, and is removed from its protective shell, thereby being exposed to the dangers of its surroundings, of its environment, right? So in essence, the person who consumes the meat of animals who have been treated in this particular way, or otherwise that can be worse or similar, right, would be considered falling into this category of fisq, of being fasiq, right? Which means that by doing that, we are basically removing ourselves spiritually from our protective covering. And as Imam Nasr had mentioned in his khutbah on Friday, the protective what is our protective covering? What serves as a protective covering for us? Protection. He said the word means protection. Taqwa. Yes, right. Taqwa. So in essence, we're like stepping outside of our removing this protection from ourselves. Why? Because Allah has stated very clearly in the Quran that I don't want you to handle the animals in this particular way. So if you either do it or consume meat from places that do it and thereby condoning it, then basically you're falling into this category of people that Allah is describing at the end of this description of how to kill the animals, right? So he says ذَلِكُمْ فِسْقٌ, right? And he goes on, and then he says that the meat of the people of the book is halal for us, and the meat of and our meat is halal for them, right? But what people tend to do is skip over the first ayah number 3, and skip all the way to, I think it's 5 or so, right? Ayah number 5, where Allah finally says that, right? Disregarding all of the stipulations. Now keep in mind, what I've said and what I'm going to say. I am saying this because this is what I strongly believe Allah is telling us, and this is what I strongly believe to be the teaching of the Prophet ﷺ and the commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm not making any fatwas, right? I'm not, bashing any well-known scholars that have been known to, say that it's okay or so on and so forth. I'm leaving all that alone. I'm just speaking on the topic, just to make that I'm speaking on the topic. So the thing that somewhat disturbs me about this issue is that oftentimes we get kind of caught up in this whole thing, right? We have people that will ask questions. I've heard this. I've heard people having this discussion, and they'll ask scholars from overseas regarding this issue. They would say, "Oh, we don't have access to halal meat. We don't have many meat markets around us, so on and so forth." Sometimes they're just straight lying because they're looking for a fatwa, right? A favorable fatwa. And sometimes they're kind of, exaggerating the issue. And they'll say, oh, we don't have access to the Hamid, and it's this, and that, and blah, blah, blah. And they're describing the situation to this particular scholar. Keep in mind, he doesn't live here. Some of them have never been here. So they can't necessarily understand the situation from, a personal standpoint. They just kind of soak in all of as many of the details that they're given, and then they basically make a fatwa. So a lot of these fatwas are coming from people that don't live here. Right? They don't live here. Not to say that we can't get fatwas from people that don't live here, but people tend to leave off certain details, right? And I've seen that personally with people complaining about not having access to the Bihamid. And the thing that people don't consider is the fact that, and I know this might seem kind of like extreme, but it's not an absolute necessity, first of all, right? You're not going to die if you don't eat meat. You're not going to die if you don't eat meat. Oh, you need to get your protein, brother. Fish, peanuts, this, that. I mean, so many things you can get your protein from, right? So if you want, so basically, the eating this meat, the exceptions for eating this meat, as far as I understand it, fall in the same categories as exceptions for eating pork, and it's mentioned with pork. It's mentioned along with pork. All of these things are mentioned in the same ayah, in the same breath as pork. حرمت عليكم الميتة والدم ولحم الخنزير وما أهل لغير الله به, so on and so on. And in that mix is pork. So it is basically equivalent to eating pork. And has the same ruling, takes the same ruling as eating pork. And there are a whole lot of reasons for this that we'll get into, inshallah. But it falls in the same category as eating pork. And what are the exceptions for eating pork? It's real extreme stuff, like you out in the middle of the desert and you about to die and you don't got nothing else but a ham hog. What are the chances of that? You out in the middle of nowhere. You ain't got no water. You ain't got no snack case. You don't have no juice. You don't have nothing. But you out in the middle of the desert with a pig. I'm just saying, like, that's an extreme case, right? Yeah, if that was the case, okay, eat a little bit of the pig, enough to get you to where you can get something other than the pig. It's simple. It's not that serious, right? Likewise, if you're out there and you got a dead animal that's not rotten and you just died, right? And you're in the middle of the desert and it's sitting there and you're about to die. Okay, take a piece of it, cook it, do whatever, and do what you got to do until you get somewhere where you can get something that doesn't fall into that category. So no, I mean it's not a thing of all out, die, kill yourself so as to avoid this type of meat. But it's being realistic. The reality of it is that meat is not an absolute necessity. It's not. The Prophet ﷺ ate very little meat. Very little meat. He barely ate meat. Right? I'm not saying we have to barely eat meat, but if you're going to eat meat, at the very least do it the right way. Do it the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us to do it. Get it from the people that are slaughtering the animals according to the Book of Allah and the Sunnah. And I mentioned some of these sunnahs, right? And you look at the contrast, look at the difference of how the people I don't know about other slaughterhouses, but I've seen a lot of different videos on how slaughterhouses are operated here. And I mentioned some of that stuff yesterday. If you look at the ayah, it's almost identical. It's as if Allah is describing exactly what these people are doing right in the ayah. SubhanAllah. They strangle pigs, right? Oh, pigs are haram. Why do we care? They're still animals. They're still living. They're still the creation of Allah. Just because it's haram doesn't mean that we have the right to abuse it. Allah didn't say abuse it. He said you can't eat it. He said don't touch it. He said leave it alone. He didn't say torture the things. They strangle the pigs, right? I saw a video where they take it's a truck, that truck that they use in construction to pick up like dirt and sometimes snow in the wintertime and stuff like that. It's like a dump truck or a bulldozer or something like that. Yeah, not a dump truck, bulldozer. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, and it has the thing that scoops and it goes up like that. So they lift it. So they tie a rope to it and they make a noose. and they put the noose around the pig's neck, and then they lift the thing. They lift the arms up and sit there, and the thing is just sitting there straight, just dangling. And it's, and they strangle the pig. When the pigs have babies, they take those babies and they castrate them alive. Literally, it's alive. I saw like a live video of this. They take a blade, they cut the testicles of the pig and rip it right out, and the thing is alive. A baby pig, and they castrate it alive. Then they have other places where when they want to kill it, instead of slaughtering it, they take it by the two legs and smash its head on the ground. Bam. Cows, calves, right? They have this tool that they, I guess, made especially for this purpose, where they take it and they put this, it just looked like a flashlight or something. They put it up against the calf's head. They hit a button, and this blunt piece of metal just goes pop, and it just drops. Just bam, it just drops, just like that. And they do that to a few of them. Pop, 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 pop. Are we really naive enough to think that the other animals don't understand what's going on? Like, do we really think that animals are so stupid to the point that they can witness this and say, oh, I guess so-and-so was tired. Look, he just fell asleep. The animals know exactly what's happening. That's why when they start popping the animals in the head, they start going crazy. All the animals trying to get away. Right? All of the descriptions here in this Quran, and then they do worse things like gassing them. They'll gas little baby animals alive. They have the chickens that they take their beaks and they use extremely hot blades to cut their beaks off so they can't fight and kill each other. Hot blades, cut the tips of their beaks off. And then the males, since they don't have any use for them, since you can't get eggs and stuff from them, as chicks, they put them on a conveyor belt and drop hundreds of them into a grinder and grind them alive. This is the majority of the meat here in the United States. That's how the majority of the meat that we find over here in Kroger and in Publix and this place and that place, all these places, the majority of the meat is coming from those slaughterhouses. Because they're the biggest ones in the country that's doing this. Which is why the only way they got some of this footage is by sending people in there with hidden cameras. These are not documentary cameras that they're walking up in there with. These are hidden cameras that they walked up in and got this stuff. Why? Because none of them slaughterhouses want to allow anybody in them places, because they know that they'll get in trouble if they're exposed. So they go up to Washington, they get their little thing, and they get the little buddies, pay them a few $1 billion and say, hey, listen, man, don't let these fools up in our spot, we mess up our business. And that practice of mistreatment to animals is something that goes totally and completely against any and every teaching of Islam. It completely contradicts it in every way, shape, or form. You have stuff like scholars that would, one particular scholar, subhanAllah, I can't remember the name. I want to say it was Imam Malik, but I can't be 100% sure. But one particular scholar, prominent hadith scholar, and inshallah I'll try to find exactly the name. But he has a famous story when he was traveling to get one hadith. Like, he was traveling like hundreds of miles, which was something that was normal back in that day for people that were studying hadith. And he was going hundreds of miles, and he gets to his destination, and he finds a person that he wanted to get this particular hadith from. So he finally gets to him, and he lets him know why he's there. So the man is tending to his donkey, right? His donkey. And something happens, and I guess he gets frustrated with the animal, and he whacks the animal like that. He's frustrated and whacks the animal. So then this particular scholar, he sees that, and he retracts. He says, I can't take a hadith from him. I can't take the hadith from him. All because the person whacked his animal in frustration. He no longer wanted to take the hadith from him. We're talking about animal rights. SubhanAllah. It's all throughout Islamic tradition. It's not new for Muslims, right? Treating animals, right, with mercy. It's all throughout Quran, Sunnah, everything. And I described some of the sunnahs. You look at that description that I gave of how they do it here, right, in the U.S. and more than likely in other parts of the world as well. And you compare that to the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ when he would slaughter an animal or his companions. I mentioned the fact that he would never do it in front of another animal. Each animal got slaughtered by itself. That's first. He would take it away from the group. Right? He would take it away from the group. Now this is something that unfortunately even a lot of Muslims don't observe this, but not doing that, failing to do that does not make them haram. However, I'm a very big advocate of following the sunnah to the T with regards to slaughtering, because it's really, I mean, it really shows the mercy of Islam for not just human beings but for animals as well, right? And he takes it away from the group. That's the first thing. Second thing, they'll never allow the animal to see the blade, which is why you get people that take the ear of the animal and fold it over its eyes so that it can't see the blade, right? And another thing is they would feed it water. They would give it water to calm it down. And then they would say a dua. They would say a dua, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, Bismillah, alladhi la yadurru ma'a ismihi shay'un fil ardi wa la fis samaa'i wa as-sami'ul 'alim. They would say a dua, right, and rub it and wait till it was calm before they would slaughter it. They would give it the opportunity to submit first, because it truly does submit, right? And I spoke about this yesterday as well. And I did this on a few occasions, twice on the day of my aqiqah for my daughter, and then my cousin-in-law and my brother-in-law, they were right next to us. And it was amazing to see the contrast, subhanAllah. Because here it was, we were here, like literally within, I don't know, less than 100 feet of each other. I'm here, they're over there, like right, we're all the way over there. They, you know, whatever. So yeah, so they're over there, and we were observing all of these things that I just named. We calmed it down. We fed it water, right? We're saying the dua. We're rubbing it. It's laying on the ground, calm, right? We're not tying it up. We didn't hog tie it. We didn't tackle it and throw it on the ground. We didn't kick, you know. We didn't punch it. We didn't put our knees in its ribs. We didn't wrestle it down. We didn't do none of that. We laid it down calmly. We said the dua. We gave it some water, right? We waited till it was calm, till it got to the point where its breathing was like this. Real slow, right? And then we put the ear over its eyes, we said the dua, and we proceeded with the slaughter. And it went, and that was it. It didn't, you know, get on here. People say, oh, I know over in such and such, and in this place where I was, the sheep got up and his head was off and it was running around and all this, you know, it's like, man, none of that happened. Now, while this was happening, my cousin-in-law, my brother-in-law were over there struggling because they had the thing tied up. Right? It was just happenstance that we just so happened to be doing it this way, and they just so happened to be doing it that way. And you had our experience, which took like less than 5 minutes, and you had them over there that was just like struggling, right? Got this thing tied up, they got the rope, or they don't have it tied up, but they're trying to get it tied up, but they can't because the thing is bucking, because it's scared. So it's bucking and kicking, and it's going crazy because it's terrified. They didn't say no dua, either no water, they're not calming it down, they tackled it, got their knees in his ribs, right, going crazy, and the animal's going nuts, going wild, and they can't control the thing. And we didn't really realize it because we were into what we were doing. Because like I described yesterday, slaughtering an animal is an act of worship. It's an act of worship. Why do you think we're commanded to say Allah? We're commanded to say Allah's name over it. Allah doesn't accept it unless you say His name over it. It's an act of worship. Right? It's an act of worship. So we were into that. And then we looked over and we realized, oh man, they're having a hard time. Let's go over there and help them out. So we walked over there and we told them, get the rope out of here, take the rope away, just follow us. And we did the same thing. The thing went from a heartbeat of 1,000,000 miles a minute boom, to the same pace that my sheep was going, real slow. Gave it some water, said the dua, pet it, we let it calm down. And likewise, we were able to do the same thing. And Hafiz Hamza, who gave the dars on Saturday, we were just recently, we teach together in Ohio. He'll be leaving next year, but we were teaching together in Ohio. We decided to make a field trip for the kids on Hajj. time, because they have a thing at the school that they call Hajj Day, where the kids, reenact all the Hajj rituals and stuff. But the older kids are too old, so we just took the older kids out on a field trip to experience the sacrifice, because many of them have not experienced it, and the ones that did have only experienced the rough, tackle the animal, punch it in the face, drop kick it, and do all this wrestling moves and all that type of stuff, right? They only experienced that. So we took them out, and what we did, alhamdulillah, Ustadh Hamza had like a very genius idea to tie it to the levels of yaqeen, right? So he had, first he told them about it. He told them, if you do it this way, the animal will submit to you. Because like I said yesterday, Allah talks about the animals in their different roles, right? Some of them, Allah says in the Quran, that some of them were made to ride, and some of them were made to be eaten, and some of them were made for this, that, and the third, right? So, right? So the ones that are made to be eaten, they know that they're made to be eaten. And if you do it, if you go about the process the way Allah commanded you, they'll submit to you. You're saying the dua, right? You're taking their feeling into consideration about this whole process, right? They'll submit to you. They literally submit to you, and I've witnessed it a couple of times. And he told them, he was describing it to them, and they were like, some of them were like convinced, and then some of them were like, yeah, well, yeah, I see, right? So he was like, all right, I'll show you a video. Right, so that was the first level of yaqeen. It was called ilm al-yaqeen. You have ilm al-yaqeen, you have ayn al-yaqeen, you have haqq al-yaqeen. So ilm al-yaqeen is just the level of assurity that you have just from being told something, right? Somebody tells you, right? Something is, this is this way. And you say, oh, okay, that's one level of yaqeen. You might believe it, you might not. If you do believe it, it's one level. The next level is seeing it with your own eyes, but you haven't yet experienced it, but you saw it, you witnessed it. So he showed them a video. You guys could check these videos out on YouTube called Mercy Halal. Right, mercy halal, and he shows the whole entire process of how you can be merciful to the animal throughout the whole process, never having to hurt it or go outside basically of that description, right? So he showed them the video, mercy halal, and they saw it. Some of them were amazed, and some of them, say like what some other people say, oh, those are his sheep. He trained them. He was just always looking for some excuse to not believe something, right? He trained them, those are his sheep, yada, 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 all that stuff. So he was like, alright. So some of y'all are convinced now that you saw the video, and we still got a little minority that need to be convinced, that need to experience it. So we took about 50 of them out to a farm. Mind you, we just moved to Ohio last year. So you can't say we built a relationship with them sheep, right? You can't say that those are our sheep and that we trained them, right? You can't say none of that. So we went out to the farm, and these men, it was a Muslim-owned farm, and the majority of the people that worked on the farm were Muslim. So we get there, students, and we had some non-Muslim staff also that teach at the school, and they wanted to join us, alhamdulillah, so they joined us. And so we told them, all right, bring the sheep. So they bring in the sheep. They got this thing on a leash, and a big long pole connected to this leash. And they're dragging this thing through the mud, right? Two guys dragging this thing. It ain't even that big, right? It's like a mid-sized sheep. And they dragging this thing. It's sitting there, blah, blah, and it's like holding back. It's not trying to go anywhere, right? They're dragging this thing through the mud, right? And then they get to the fence, and they want to get it over the fence. So they both are like manhandling this thing. They're picking it up, and the thing is bucking and going crazy. They're dropping it, and they pick it back up. They're dropping it. They can't barely handle this thing, right? And then they pick it up, and then it's so scared that it pees on them, right? They was so terrified that it pees on one of the guys, straight peed on him, went all just blood all over him. And he was just like, oh, they're frustrated now. So then they finally, these two big dudes that have been doing this half their lives, right, dealing with these animals, right? They take it and they throw it over the fence, they get it over the fence, and they drag it. And at first we were real frustrated because we're like, we really believe in this, this thing about being merciful to the animals, right? So we were frustrated at first, but then we thought to ourselves, you know what? It's good that they saw that because they get to see that right in front of them, and then they get to see the flip side of it, of how you're supposed to do it the proper way. So Ustadth Hamza and we flew Imam Dawood Yassin in, who's big on this type of stuff and nature and stuff like that. He's like a bowman, hunts with bowmen and all that stuff. So we brought him in. So they went. I was taking pictures and stuff, and I have some pictures actually. I don't have my laptop. I will show you some of the pictures of what I'm gonna tell you. And so they went and they told them, they said, man, get this leash out of here, get this pole out of here, and y'all go somewhere. Let's go somewhere. They were still frustrated. We thought it was good for them to see, but we're still frustrated. So they did it. They took the leash, they took everything, and they went. So they guided the sheep over to a spot in the grass and proceeded to say the dua and calm the sheep down. Mind you, this thing is not on the leash, right? It could buck, it could run off, it could do whatever it wants. They have very strong shoulders. They want to get away from it. They'll get away from it, right? So they guided over and they said the dua, they laid it down. Almost immediately, the thing was like completely calm. It laid down almost effortlessly. Right? So it lays down, he's saying the dua, and they we break them up into groups so that they don't startle the animal, right? So we broke them up into groups and we gave an adult a group, right? So we had one group come forward and told the rest of them to stay back. There was about maybe 6 or 7 people per group or something like that. So we brought them forward, and then they were speaking really quietly. One was speaking really quietly while the other one was petting the sheep, and then he was telling them, see, the animal is you can do whatever you want right now, right? And he had them come over one by one so that they can have now that level of haqqul yaqeen. Now you actually experience it for yourself. So they came over. Now you talking about 9th grade, little girls, boys, little boys, little girls, so they come over, and one by one, 2 by 2, depending on what they wanted. They came and he let go and he told them, hold the sheep. And they put their hand on the sheep, and the thing is literally, it's laying there. It's just chilling, right? And he told them the thing can they pick up vibes, right? So if you're nervous and you're like kind of like not you're like real nervous, it'll pick that up and it'll get nervous too, right? If you're not saying the dua, it'll pick that up and it'll get nervous too. So he knew who was either saying the dua or not saying the dua, and whether or not you were nervous by the reaction of the animal, right? Because he didn't say the dua out loud, he said say it to yourself. So some of them, the ones that were saying to themselves, the animal was calm the whole time. And then, another one will come. And then the sheep will pick up his head and will go like that, pick up his head, right? And you say, are you saying the dua? And you say, no. Say the dua. Say the dua. And calm down again, right? Right? And then another one comes, picks his head up. He's like, are you saying the dua? He's like, yeah. He's like, are you nervous? A little bit. He's like, calm down. Cool down. Calm down. And the animal will lay back down. And the thing that really shocked us is that at one point throughout this process that all these kids are coming and they're petting the sheep and so on and so forth, the sheep lifts his head up and it puts his head in his lap. So calm. Come on. I just got goosebumps saying it. I was there, I saw it. I'm just telling y'all I got goosebumps. It puts his head in his lap like I feel safe with you. You're a person of Allah. I'm straight with you. Right? He puts his head in his lap like it's a pet. So subhanAllah. And those guys just like 5 minutes before that was dragging the thing in the mud, trying to get it over the fence, and it peed on him and everything, all that. And all you had to do was be sincere, be calm, say dua, and you ain't need none of that. And the thing is just chilling. And he told one of the girls, he said, take your index finger and lift his head up. And they took their index finger and they went like this. He said, now if you wanted to slaughter that animal, you by yourself, 9th grade girl, you could do it with ease and it'd be nothing. It'd be like nothing. Right? So they all got that level of haqqul yaqeen, actually being able to witness that. Right? And that's the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. This is how we're supposed to treat these animals, especially the ones that, because you're taking a life. It's a serious thing. It's an animal, but still, you're taking a life, right? And it's a very serious thing. And a lot of these students have never witnessed that. A lot of Muslims in general don't necessarily witness it being done that way, right? It's not a very spiritual experience to see, somebody, doing some suplex and have Nelson on a cow, and then slit his throat. You don't necessarily get on any type of spiritual high seeing that, right? So if you have experienced that, no, your experience was not necessarily the best of spiritual experiences. But when you see it done this way, you're feeding it water, you're petting it, you're saying dua, it becomes like a form of worship, right? Because you're taking the steps, so you're obeying the commandments of Allah throughout this process, right? Then you can have the experience that these students had. Now, mind you, before we went, we asked the students who wants to actually witness the slaughter and who does not. Half the students raising their hand, I don't want to be it, I don't want nothing to do with it. I'll watch the process, and when y'all ready to slaughter, we don't walk away. Half it. So we got there, and we did the whole process. They saw all that, they got the petting, and we did this and that. Only one student, when it was time to slaughter, we said, okay, we're about to slaughter the animal. Whoever wants to walk away, walk away. One girl walked away. Out of 50 students. One girl walked away. Because she's just, she had a weak stomach, or, whatever. One girl walked away. They all changed their minds, completely changed their minds. So then the butcher came. This dude rolled up with his apron on, blood on, and smelling like blood and all this other stuff. So then the animal we right back at square one. This thing is all like nervous and stuff. Because he's like, all right, hurry, I gotta get back to the butcher shop. I gotta get back, let's hurry up, man. Let's get it moving, man. Y'all taking too long. And he's like, listen, chill, dude. So the sheep pops his head up, and it's like, whoa, what's going on? Like, I'm feeling some bad vibes here. It's like, it started going crazy, So we're like, get out of here, man. We're like, chill, man. Like, now we gotta calm it down again. So we told him, like, wait till we calm it down, and then come over here and beat and chill out. So then, we calmed it down, and finally, he's sitting over there like, whatever, And one also during the process, the owner of the farm came, Muslim, and he saw how the animal was on the ground, no leash, effortlessly just lying there, while students are petting it and saying a dua, and he was standing there with his jaw dropped, and he said, I have never seen anything like this in my life. And I've been doing this my whole life. I have never seen anything like this in my entire life. He just stood there staring at it for what seemed like forever. And then he finally came back to his senses. I was like, oh, okay, that works. And he goes back. Right? So then finally, the guy finally calms down. And he comes and, says the Bismillah Allahu Akbar. He slaughters the sheep. We're standing on grass. And the silence was so deafening that you could hear a pin drop on the grass if you were to drop a pin. It was so, they realized a life had just been taken. They had a totally different idea. A life had just been taken. It's an animal, but a life had just been taken, right? And it was deafening silence. Mind you, we got all these class clowns and goofs that we just knew that some of these class clowns were going to have something to say, like, oh, look at that, nothing. It was deafening silence. SubhanAllah. And they just stood there, and then some of them pulled their cameras out, and they were it was just like, man, this tranquility just came over everybody. It was the craziest experience. Even though I had done it with my Abidullah, I didn't have 50 people there, so I didn't necessarily see the effect that it could have on people, and not just anybody, but these are kids whose parents, whose parents own liquor stores, right? Some of their relatives, mind you, own, I got some kids here, some very bad places that exploit women, right? These are Muslims, unfortunately Arab Muslims, right? Which doesn't say anything about all of them, but those particular people there are confused, right? They're really confused, and they own some of these places in Toledo, Ohio. They own all the liquor stores in Toledo, Ohio, right? And this is the background that they're coming from, and they're having this experience now, and it's just like, SubhanAllah, right? Deafening silence. And another thing that I noticed was that normally when the animal is really worked up and scared, and you kill it, blood goes whoosh, it's shoots out like a jet, right? But when you calm it down and you kill it this particular way, it flows like a waterfall, right? So I went to cover it up so it didn't splatter or anything like that, just in case, right? And I had a couple of speckles on my hand, nothing. It was nothing, right? It just poured out, right? And that was sort of the message that we wanted to send to the students. It can be done in a way in which the animal is shown mercy, right? And still be done, and you not have to, do all this unnecessary stuff, right? So then we had a place to cook the meat, so on and so forth, and we brought it back a few days later. We brought it to the school, Mind you, we got one vegetarian in the whole school. One vegetarian. She's not even vegetarian because of no animal rights or nothing like that. Some, it's just her own little thing. She's just like, I'm not eating meat. She's a vegetarian, right? But she's okay with people eating meat. We're serving this meat, and half of these students, man, these are some carnivores, man. They eat nothing but meat. They couldn't eat it. They couldn't eat the meat. I was serving the food. This is not like hearsay. I'm serving it, and I'm like, got the rice, we got the salad, and I'm like, what's some meat? They're like, nah, I can't. I pet that thing, man. It was like, I pet that thing, man. I gave it water. They couldn't even eat the thing, man. These are kids, man. They said, nah. It was like, I can't. They just looked at it and was like, nah, man, straight. And they went, and they just had a vegetarian lunch. They had some rice and some salad. They couldn't do it, man. So it had a very profound effect on these kids, man. Right? So people, they get off into the whole fiqh thing, right? Because I was mentioning this to one of the parents, and before I could even say anything, he's like, "Oh, let's not get into the fiqh thing." And I'm like, "Dude, listen, I'm not talking about what does that experience that I just described have to do with fiqh in terms of what I'm saying, what you can potentially get out of doing it in the right way, the spiritual aspect of it." So what does that have to do with the technicalities of fiqh? It has nothing to do with the technicalities of fiqh, right? So that's just one of the stories that I have wanted to share. And then and to drive the point home even more as to why we show this level of mercy to all of the creation of Allah, right? Regardless of whether or not we eat the animals, we ride the animals, we have them as pets, whatever. Allah says that all of the creation in the world do tasbih of Allah. They all glorify Allah. All of them do dhikr of Allah. And He says, even if you don't understand it, even if we don't understand it, that's what they're doing. Birds chirping, yeah, okay, they're communicating with each other, yes. But sometimes it's dhikr, right? The birds do dhikr of Allah. Cats, dogs, in the sea, the fish in the sea. Allah says all of His creation, they do tasbih of Him, right? So how do we want to be treating something that's doing tasbih of Allah, and that will have the opportunity to testify against us, right? Is it so hard for us to believe that an animal can testify against us when Allah tells us that our limbs will testify against us? That you'll be sitting there, He'll seal your mouth, and your hand is going to say, yeah, He used me to, to do this haram or that haram. Your feet are saying, yes, He used me to walk to this haram place or that haram place, right? Your ears are saying, yeah, He used me to listen to this. Your eyes, and He used me to watch this haram, that haram. So is it so far-fetched to believe that the animal that you treat wrongly will testify against you, or that it will have an effect on your akhirah, right? Very famous stories about like the woman that had the cat that she kept caged up and didn't feed it. Allah promised her hellfire because of that treatment to a cat. Was it because she wasn't praying 5 times a day? Or because she wasn't paying zakat? She probably was doing all of that. But she was mistreating her cat, a creation of Allah that deserves to be treated well. She caged it up and didn't feed it for days on end. Starved the thing. And Allah promised her hell. And on the flip side, a prostitute gave water to a dog in her boot, from her shoe. And He promised her paradise. She's a prostitute. All because of how they treated an animal. So this issue of the Zabiha meat, it transcends just a bunch of technical fiqh issues. It's very much spiritual. It's very much spiritual, and it will have an effect on us spiritually. That's why when I was explaining that when Allah said that, fisq, right? The spiritual aspect of that, removing yourself from your protective covering, taqwa, disregarding the commandment of Allah, he says to do it this way to avoid that way, right? So these are just some things to keep in mind with regards to this issue. And it's an ongoing struggle for some people. You know, it's understandable that it can be difficult, you know, if you have a Kroger right next door and your halal meat market is 20 minutes away. All right. I mean, yeah, all right, it would be easier to just go next door and get some knocked over the head, strangled meat. Okay. Yeah, I had to throw that in there. Yeah, you could do that. It's easier. But yeah, I mean, subhanAllah. But it's not like so difficult to get up and go to the halal market and say, all right, I'm going to buy meat for a month or 2 weeks or even a week, right? So that you don't have to, you know, it's a one-time thing. It lasts you for a week or two or maybe a month or 2 months or however long, right? Even if you have to travel an hour or 2 hours and you get it in bulk, right? It is not so difficult. If you live out in the middle of nowhere and you don't have access to it, be patient. Be patient. Right? This is the thing, is like we live in this McDonald's, you know, Burger King day and age, right? This fast food where we gotta have everything right away, and we have to have everything that we want, and we gotta have it now. What's that commercial, that tax commercial or whatever? It's my money and I want it now. Right? That's what they're teaching us, right? Impatience. It's mine and I want it now. Fast food. Go in the drive-thru. You got your food in 2 minutes. Microwave. Throw your food in the microwave so you don't have to wait and heat it up in the oven or on a skillet. Right? I want to heat it up right now. 2 minutes. Right? We live in this fast. We gotta have everything done right now. Right? And we don't have any patience. You live out in the middle of nowhere. Be patient. Wait till, find out, where's the nearest place. Go out. It's like people make I'm just saying these things because I've heard these things. It's not like actually making up scenarios. I've heard people say, we don't have any halal markets where we live. Okay, what does that have to do with the fact that you're now in Virginia where it's like flooded with Muslims and halal restaurants and everything all over the place and you're still eating Zabiha meat? So it's really a thing of hawa, of your own personal desire, our own personal desires when it comes to these certain things, right? We want it, and we can't handle hearing somebody say that we're not supposed to have it, right? So we look for any and every justification to just go ahead and keep on doing it, right? So yeah, you might be from a place that doesn't have, access to the Zabiha meat, but where you are right now, you do. So what excuse do you have for eating it while you're here? If you wanted to say that one. These are situations that I haven't said this to people because I don't try to push it on people. But these are things that go through my mind, right? I don't want to make it a big deal to people that I'm dealing with directly. Unless you ask me, then I'll let you know. But these are things that go through my mind when people see this stuff. I'm just like, it's bogus, man. I'm sorry, it's bogus. I'm guilty of it. Sometimes I try to justify things that, I shouldn't be doing. Oh, well, but you see, technically I'm not really doing it if you look at it from this angle. We do that. I'm not saying that I don't do it, but it's just something that it's subhanAllah. So I basically could close with that. That's all I said. A lot of what I wanted to say last night as well. Yes. Yes, sir.
So, as Muslims, we don't kill animals unjustly.
Absolutely.
Okay, and we treat them with respect.
Right.
So, what we have in America, when we have, ain't this an extremism in America with the animals, as far as animal spas.
Animal spas?
Yes.
Right.
Animal cemetery.
Right.
Animals inherited.
Right. Yes.
So we have to understand that too.
Right. The other extreme.
The other extreme.
Right.
You know what I mean? We have an extreme as Muslims where when we slaughter our animals when we're supposed to here in this society. You know what I mean? You know, there's bigger extremes with these pets.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. There's no extreme that is good. There's no extreme that is good. Either it's far right, far left, way up, way down, this way, you know, whatever it is, any extreme in any direction is not encouraged, right? So no, we don't want to get to the point where our animals are inheriting millions of dollars from us, right? This just happened not too long ago. Some guy Chihuahua inherited like 30 mil or something crazy. What are you gonna do with that? Buy an endless supply of like dog chow. You know, so stuff like that we don't that's considered the sloth. That's considered waste. And we don't encourage waste. Right? And all this stuff about, you know, trying to make the lives of animals like human beings, no, we're not encouraging anything like that. But on the flip side, we don't go to the other extreme of looking at the animals as just animals, right? We're the best creation, they're below us, so we get to treat them however we want to treat them. It don't work like that. You will be asked about how you treat these animals. It's very clear in the Sunnah of the Prophet in the Quran. You will be asked. It's as simple as that. And if you don't believe that, then you're gonna have a rude awakening on the Day of Judgment if you continue to do it or continue to support it. It's not about just doing it, but it's supporting it. When you condone it, you might as well be doing it. When you support these places, right? And the thing is that avoiding places that have non-Zabiha meat or that treat animals, and keep in mind, a very big point that people don't understand. Even if a Muslim killed an animal the way that was described in the Quran, it's haram. Even if a Muslim did it, even if they said Bismillah over it and then strangled it, it's haram. So the way it's killed overrides whether or not the person's Muslim, and even whether or not they said Allah's name over it. Because saying Allah's name over it, that's one part of it. You said Allah's name, now you gotta go about the process the right way. Right? That's only one part of it. We can't just do Takbiratul Ihram, skip Fatiha and Salah, right? And then do everything else and then our prayer is going to be accepted. No, it don't work like that. You got to do everything. If you miss all of the most important parts of the prayer, your prayer is null and void. Likewise, with this particular process, if you miss critical areas, then it's stripped of its of being halal. So even if a Muslim killed it, it ain't about Muslims killing it, because Muslims, they do it the wrong way too. But so it's not about Muslims killing it, right? So yeah.
Okay. We're getting a lot of meat from these Muslims. It's getting a lot of meat from these big meat corporations.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
Muslims, they get a lot of meat from the big meat corporations.
Yeah. I mean, for us to raise it.
They buy them alive.
Yeah, they buy them alive, and the way they raise at these farms is not halal.
I mean, if they buy them and then they are raising them the proper way, then it's fine.
Well, they already raised, but you get them, you get them and slaughter.
I see what you're saying. Well, that's a controversial issue as well. Taking into consideration how the animals are treated, all this stuff about like free range and organic and all that stuff. That's nothing new with Islam, right? You know, with regards to how the animals are treated, you know, cage-free eggs, and all this stuff. The thing is, it's really hard to know whether or not something is really cage-free or, you know, free range or this, that, and the third, because really, if they let the chicken out of the cage for like a minute, they could consider it cage-free, right? Literally, they could consider it cage-free. They can take it out, you know, go like this, say, all right, you got some fresh air, throw it back in the cage, and say that's cage-free. They can do that. So it's really hard. So, I mean, if you want to say realistically speaking, it would be very difficult to only consume meat that you absolutely are sure of how it was raised, right? Which would mean that you would have to either get your own, you know, raise it for a little while, or, you know, something like that, and you slaughter your own meat. It's not far-fetched. It's just not something that a lot of people will be willing to do. People act like it's far-fetched, but it's not far-fetched. It's just something that a lot of people would not be willing to do. But in terms of getting that intricate, you don't necessarily have to get that intricate. You work with what you have, you know, to the best of your knowledge, but definitely not stuff that has been killed in a particular way, right? You know, being burned alive, you know, being branded and all that type of stuff. Right? We don't support any of that at all whatsoever, right? And it's not as hard to avoid those types of meat as it is to say, you know, avoid products that are made in like sweatshops. Like that stuff is like, you know, I don't know what's not made in a sweatshop. It's kind of like, I mean, that's kind of hard. He was like, oh, boycott this brand and that brand and these people and those people. And they don't pay their workers enough. They got sweatshops. They do this. They outsource. You know, it's like almost every company in some way is doing something that's like grimy, shady, messed up. That, you know, they shouldn't be doing. But you know, it's not the same because people make that argument with that. It's like, well, we might as well just go out in the middle of nowhere and build huts and, you know, live off of no electricity or something like that. It's not the same thing with meat. You can actually avoid those types of meat a lot easier than it is to avoid, you know, like certain name brands, for instance. It's not as hard. People, you know, we make it seem that way, but it's really not as hard. It's really not as hard. You can find some of these farms that everywhere you go, every place has a farm where the animals are raised organically, you know, and they might be a little more expensive than the things that are just fed a whole bunch of, you know, corn and chemicals and this, that, and the third. Yeah, they might be a little more expensive, but how far are you willing to go to ensure that you're not going outside of the bounds of what Allah has laid down? How far are you, I mean, is there any amount of money that, you know, that really can you know, prevent you from obeying Allah? I mean, like, is it to that I'm not willing to spend $50 more on you know, an animal that was treated properly, allowed to go out and graze? You know, am I just looking at the money? Oh, I want to save $50, so I'll just go up to, you know, this place and just, you know, get something that got branded, that gets slapped around, it's getting shots, it's getting punched in the head, it's getting abused. I mean, how far are you willing to go to, you know, to obey Allah? So that's really the way I see it. And yes, it's easier said than done, but it's something that at least we can start to ponder on and think about, you know, so that this tradition of slaughtering animals in the proper way and only eating not just halal but tayyib, right? Which is the thing that people you know, they play around with words sometimes. Oh, it's halal, you know, because it's not pork. That's why you got a lot of places you gotta be real careful. They'll tell you the food is halal because it's not pork, but it's not Zabiha. They actually got it from like Publix or something, or Kroger, or some other non-Muslim place, non-Zabiha place, right? So yeah, so we have to start having our gauge along the lines of, you know, is it halal and tayyib? Tayyib meaning, is it, you know, good for you, nourishing, as opposed to McDonald's, right? I know that's like a controversial one. A lot of people eat at McDonald's, I know. But McDonald's is garbage food. I'm sorry. Yeah, I said it. You want to fight about it? McDonald's is garbage food. Period. Burger King, all of them cats. It is no way you can get me to eat something that if you let it sit for a year, it look exactly the same as when it came out of the oven. I'm not eating it. It's lifeless. It is lifeless. Stuff is supposed to decay and go back into the earth and produce more life. If it doesn't produce more life, if it can't produce more life, I don't want nothing to do with it. Right? McDonald's, fast food, that stuff does not fit the category of tayyib. It might be halal if they got it from the, you know, halal animals, right? Some of the stuff. But it's not tayyib. It's not tayyib. Allah doesn't stop at halal. He says halalan tayyiba. So that's all really that I wanted to say. I think I made all the points that I wanted to make that I was not able to make yesterday. I was trying to keep it short yesterday because I didn't want to prolong the, you know, I didn't want to keep people out too late. But I think that I did hit all the points that I wanted to. Are there any questions before we close out? It's almost time to break fast. Take less than 10 minutes. Any particular questions? Yes.
Question. I have participated in myself.
Right.
And I've been told that submit?
I was like, I saw a cow submit. I mean, it all depends, man. I mean, if you're handling the animal with an air of doubt that it's going to submit, then perhaps that'll be one's experience, right? And you might have situations where, we don't know sometimes what people are doing to these animals behind the scenes. So sometimes some animals could be a little more wild than others, depending on what was done to them, behind the scenes. But so far, personally, I'm 3-0 with these animals, right? And it's not me. It's not me. When I did it at my Zabiha, it was the first time I had ever done it. I'd never done it before. I had never done it. That was my first time slaughtering an animal in my life. And it happened exactly the way they were described to me. Everybody doesn't have the same experience, but I can promise you that if you go about it this particular way, that the animal will submit. It's as simple as that. But yeah, I mean, you have some that are more wild than others, but in general, in most cases, the animal will submit. If you're doing it the right way, you're making the drive, you're calm, you give it water, you know what I'm saying? You're not having it around like other animals in a place that smells like blood. They smell blood, they know what it is. They see another animal get slaughtered, they know what just happened. Right? They see another animal get knocked upside the head, they know exactly what happened. They can sense pain and anguish and this and that. They can sense all of that. We tend to think that because they're animals that they can't, but they can. So that's another thing. Yes.
Have you ever been to slaughterhouse in Saudi Arabia one month?
I was not, but I saw when the brothers that went came back. When we were in Mina, and some brothers went to do slaughtering, and they told me about how those brothers handled me, how they handled the animals, and I was highly disappointed. Yes, it's pretty bad. They were describing them as picking them up and flinging them across the room and slitting their throats, and it's unfortunate that Muslims are indulging in this as well, but the fact that Muslims, the way I take it personally, is that just because Muslims are doing it too, they don't make it right.
I tell you what, next time you go to the slaughterhouse. I went to the slaughterhouse. And I know you're not going to believe me. And these animals coming off the truck, and just like you said, all these animals, they were coming off the truck. We was in Mexico. You would have to see it to believe it. Basically, coming off the truck, it was like you said before, it was howling and screaming. And it was a big slaughter.
Oh, you went to one where they were doing it the right way. Oh, okay.
And all the blood and everything.
Right.
If you said things like you said, you would have to see it.
To believe it, yeah. That's why we give.
Because he knew that was he was there for.
Right. Okay, so alhamdulillah, you got to see when they was doing it the right way. The brothers that went to one that they were not doing it the right way. So alhamdulillah, I'm glad to hear that some people are doing it the right way.
And it seemed like they were running. Right. Saying, let me be next.
Oh, so
you have to see it
to believe it, right.
I never believed that, because and it's something else too. You know how you get the $100?
Yeah.
So when they want to pay $35 for the animal.
That's why, inshallah, if we can, I'm going to try to talk to Imam Masuri and Suleiman and see if we can maybe organize a trip for the people here, and whoever, would like to join. Maybe we could, find a farm somewhere or something like that. And Dr. Askari, she has animals in her land. Maybe we can talk to her or somebody else and try to arrange a trip and have people experience it themselves. So people can come and they can hold the animal themselves. They can see the drive and you can actually have a first-hand experience. You don't have to slaughter if you don't want to, obviously. But, maybe we can try to, I'll talk to them about potentially organizing something. I've been wanting to do this and take it, wherever I go and allow people to experience this, just so that they can have that level of haqqul and actually witness it for themselves. Like, like the brother said, you really do have to see it in order to fully believe it. At this point, you're experiencing ilmul yaqeen, I'm telling you. But you haven't seen it and you haven't experienced it. So the next step you can do on your own as well, you can go on YouTube and watch the brother on Mercy Halal, You can watch it for yourself, and then hopefully at some point maybe we can try to get a trip and have everybody experience it for themselves. What do Thank you.
You know, as I listen, and I'm thinking about the things that we have a lot of halal markets over there.
Yeah.
And so, as you describe the process, I mean, the amount of meat they supply, I doubt that these animals get individually better ways to slaughter.
Yeah.
So then it makes it. Then it comes to the point. Now I'm a vegan.
Oh wow.
I can't. No, I'm not.
Oh, you're not.
No, I'm not.
Oh.
But I'm saying now after we listen to you, then you have on your conscience
Right.
this overwhelming, this conversation we just had.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you don't even want to eat halal.
Right.
Right. And I take the Zabiha.
Right.
And it's not because you don't want to eat meat. It's because, okay, now I'm feeling guilty.
Right.
Because as I'm saying, I don't know how this animal was treated.
Right.
So now we begin to get into this space
Right.
that isn't healthy. So there's just a level of practicality, if you want to say, in terms of extremism. Go back to the conversation of extremism.
Right.
And so you're saying, you individually, you take the animal, you do this, but there's no way to properly feed the number of people in Atlanta with each of those animals being, slaughtered, as you say. It seems very difficult. And I may be putting forth, I may be probably those at the 3 levels of faith or whatever, and I'm not doubting. What you're saying is inspiring. I personally think that. It is inspiring, and it's very redeeming. But then I look into, I'm a very practical person, I begin to look into how we feed the number of people with bona fide,
Well, the thing is, it's actually possible. It is possible to kill, to slaughter a large number of animals in this particular way. It's possible because that whole process that I described to you, although it's very profound and very different from what people are used to, it actually only takes like 5 minutes, right? So, 3 to 5 minutes, depending on, how long you want to, say the dua and so on and so forth. It's really only like 3 to 5 minutes, like really. And you have some slaughterhouses here in America, especially the guy that does the Mercy Halal videos, he built stalls on his farm. Individual stalls in which they take the animals into these stalls and they slaughter them one by one. They do it one by one. And he has a big farm. He produces a lot of meat. But he goes in there and he takes them in there one by one. 5 minutes, boom, in and out. 5 minutes, in and out. 5 minutes, in and out. And just think about 5 minutes. You got an 8-hour day. Let's say they work, for 8 hours. 5 minutes times, let's say 6.5 or so hours. If you give yourself a break, that's a lot of meat that can go in the way that it should go. So, and to what you said about how you feel, the feeling of guilt and being worried about how the animal is feeling, I think that's very healthy. I would argue that it's healthy for you to feel that. I think it's good that you feel that way. I wouldn't say that that's problematic, and I wouldn't call it unhealthy, because previously you were not concerned with how the animals were killed. It was like, all right, that's some meat, I'm about to buy that, and I'm about to get down, right? Whereas now, you're conscious of it, right? And you might say, well, I can't do anything about it. You can, with all of us, we can do something about it, but it's not going to happen overnight. And that's what I was saying. It's not something that, is expected to happen overnight. I've gotten to the point where personally, when I'm home in Toledo, me and my wife, we don't eat a whole lot of meat, right? I'm not saying other people should do this, but that experience for me, having experienced that multiple times, yes, it has caused me to lessen my intake of meat to the point where mostly at home, mostly we don't eat meat. But if someone invites us or something like that, we're not to the extreme to where I'm saying, how's the meat killed, brother? I don't do that. How was it killed, brother? Was it fed right? Was it, we don't go to that extreme. If it, as long as you got it from a halal market, it's at least Allah's name was said over it, and it wasn't shot in the head, knocked upside the head, strangled. At the very least, the bare minimum of what Allah said in the Quran, because leaving it and that stuff, that's extra, like that's sunnah. So if you don't do it, that doesn't make the meat halal. Right.
While we're breaking our fast, Gaia, can you raise your hand? Everybody look here. See Sister Gaia Shakir. New Africa Halal Farms is doing exactly what Brother Ashir just mentioned. They have some animals for us for what he just mentioned. So you can get in contact with Sister Gaia and get that information, inshallah. And Allah accept our fast.
That's it.